I was asked by the government to go to South America and kind of a cultural thing, you know, before the, those Nazi days.
Yes.
And I went down with the staff to see if I couldn't make some films about the ABC countries down there. You know, there's Argentina, Brazil, and Chile.
Yes.
And they first wanted me to go on a handshaking goodwill tour, and I said, I don't go for it. I'm not a good handshaker and everything. And then they came back and said, well, you go down and make some films about these countries. I said, well, that's my business. I can do that.
Take a pencil in your hand.
That's right.
Indeed.
So I took a staff, and we set up headquarters in Rio. We also went and set up a studio in the Argentine. We went over to Chile, and some of my artists, we divided our party. Some of them went up through Peru. And when we came back, I made these 4 short subjects. We brought back the Tico Tico tune was being played down there, and I brought that back and put it in. Brought back Brazil, and both of them became standard tunes here. And out of it, we developed this little Brazilian parrot, Jose Carioca, who played with Donald Duck. Anyways, these 4 films were more or less put together, and they went out in the theater. And of course, it was one of those things that they thought Disney needed a subsidy, but you know, fortunately, that little thing went out, and it did a heck of a business, and the United States government didn't have to put up 1 nickel.
Ah, wonderful.
It was actually a goodwill tour for the government.
And it was later, about 2 years later, that the 3 Caballeros then became the new project.
That was a follow-up, yeah.
Combining live action.
Yeah. I almost need the subsidy on that one.
And here's the studio we set up in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. An improvised studio in the hotel. It was a clearinghouse for all our sketches, notes, and music, the record we were keeping of our trip. Each day there were press interviews and distinguished visitors. Here we met the artists and writers of Brazil who helped us in every way possible. We were lucky to be on hand for Brazil's Independence Day parade, September the 7th. This really was an impressive sight. All day long they marched, every branch of the armed forces. Passing in review before President Vargas were naval cadets, infantry, cavalry, men of the Air Force, artillery, and modern mechanized units. It made us realize that Brazil was not going to be caught napping in the midst of a world at war, but was prepared to meet any emergency. At the stadium, we heard the children of Rio, 30,000 of them, singing patriotic songs. And leading this enthusiastic chorus was Dr. Heitor Villa-Lobos, one of Brazil's outstanding composers. The famous musician devotes much of his time to the musical education of the Brazilian children, and his efforts have been highly successful. Every day we roamed the city streets, sketching and studying Rio. Street scenes, sidewalk cafes, even the intricate designs of the sidewalks themselves. This trolley took us up 2,400 feet to the summit of Corcovado with its famous statue of the Christus. The tracks wind through dense woods as they climb to the giant statue over 100 feet tall. Illuminated at night, it can be seen 20 miles at sea. Sugarloaf, famous landmark at the southern tip of Rio's harbor. Artist Lee Blair got busy on a watercolor of Sugarloaf in the bay. And while Lee was painting, the others went up in the cable car. A smooth trip when the wind isn't blowing. That's Botafogo Bay. From the top of Sugarloaf, we got a good view of Copacabana Beach. This is the playground that's known the world over. Hotels, casinos, miles of white sand and surf. The artists spent hours in the botanical gardens, and they found an amazing variety of strange, exotic plants. Orchids, for instance, grow wild in Brazil's forests. They're far superior to most of the hothouse varieties in size and color. And, of course, they went into the book with the other sketches. The Victoria Regina, a giant water lily, is found along the Amazon. Each blossom is a bouquet in itself. We ran across strange trees whose roots formed designs above ground, just the type of thing the artists were looking for. The zoo furnished plenty of sketch material and lots of color. Flocks of graceful flamingos, anteaters, and the tapir, a shy, timid creature who didn't seem to enjoy posing. A Brazilian wallflower. Day by day, the drawings piled up, from the zoos, the parks, the city streets, and the beaches. The many friends we made here contributed books, pictures, and charts of all things Brazilian that led to many cartoon ideas. The little armadillo or tattoo looked like good picture material. His heavy armor plate and cute expression made him a real find, a perfect cartoon pal for Pluto the pup. But the natural comedian of Brazil is O Papagayo, the parrot, the inspiration of many funny stories. The animators adopted him, dressed him up, named him Joe Carioca. The rhythm of Brazil, the samba. This is a reco-reco, and a cabasa, rhythm instruments used by samba orchestras. The dance itself is a two-step with a bounce. And of course, it was second nature to Joe Carioca. One of his first jobs on the screen was to teach it to Donald Duck. And here's an old Brazilian game called Caxangá. They say the Indians played it centuries ago. It was played with shells originally, but today they use matchboxes. The object is to go through this passing routine without missing. Here again, rhythm plays an important part. First, you sing the verse, then hum it, then play to the tempo in silence. It may look simple to Donald, but it's a fast game when you get going. The duck's a little slow at picking it up. Yes, we're packing up. Much as we enjoyed our stay, there were a lot more countries to be seen, and time was short. All our sketches, notes, and impressions of Brazil were gathered up, and we were on our way. Down the coast from Rio, past Sao Paulo, Porto Alegre, and then to Montevideo, capital of Uruguay. This is Montevideo's harbor, where the Rio Plata meets the Atlantic. It was just outside of this harbor that the historic naval battle was fought in 1939, resulting in the destruction of Germany's Graf Spee. In contrast to warlike thoughts was this peaceful scene of a group of fishermen trying their luck along the waterfront. Our general impression was that people here get a lot of fun out of living. This impression grew as we saw Carrasco, Positos, Solis, Punta del Este, and a dozen other fine beach resorts. Everything here seemed designed to make life more pleasant. Montevideo's mild weather, its protected harbor, and long summer season make it an ideal location for all water sports. There are many clubs here devoted to swimming, rowing, and sailing. The modern white structure in the background is the Uruguayo, one of the large yacht clubs. The raising of livestock is Uruguay's most important industry. The finest breeds of sheep, cattle, and hogs are raised here on the flat prairie lands. While Uruguay is known principally as a sheep country, over 4,000 head of cattle a day are driven to the packing houses. Most of the products are exported. In one of the parks, we saw this striking monument erected to Uruguay's early settlers. It's called La Carreta, the ox-drawn cart of the pioneer, similar to the covered wagons that crossed the plains of North America during the past century. At the port of Colonia, the city's children gave Walt a rousing reception. School was closed for the day in honor of Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck. There were speeches, bands, and presentations, and the party was given a cheerful send-off as our ship left Colonia's pier. The city of Colonia was one of the first settlements in Uruguay, dating back to 1680. It's directly across the Rio Plata from Buenos Aires, and it was here that we crossed to the capital city of the Argentine. Buenos Aires is the third largest city in the Western Hemisphere, a city of beauty and hospitality. As in Brazil and Uruguay, the art, literary, and musical groups did everything possible to help us get acquainted. This is the dome of Argentina's capital, the Congress Building. The world-famous opera house, Teatro Colón. And South America's tallest skyscraper, the Kavanaugh Building. Florida Street, where all vehicle traffic is suspended during the afternoon for the convenience of shoppers. In contrast to the modern motor cars, we found that many merchants still prefer these picturesque wagons. Everything here has the artistic touch. Even the vegetable man turns his cart into a miniature art gallery. Close to the business and residential districts, we found beautiful Palermo Park with its bridle paths and lagoons designed for play and relaxation. Sports play an important part here. Football's considered the national game. And the famous polo teams of the Argentine have won many international matches. This group of artists demonstrated Argentine folk dances for us on the roof of the Alvear Palace Hotel, where our Buenos Aires studio was located. They were directed by Professor Chazareta, an authority on music and dances of the Argentine. This dance is called El Gato, the Cat. Another version of El Gato. Our musicians were busy making notes of these new rhythms. And this is a Samba, not to be confused with the Brazilian Samba. Everyone agreed that this was the perfect type of research, entertaining as well as instructive. And we learned a lot more about the Argentine from Senor F. Molina Campos, famous artist and authority on the gaucho, the Argentine Cowboy. At the studio on his ranch, he showed us hundreds of sketches of the Pampas and its colorful people and gauchos in action. Senor Campos's pictures and stories made us anxious to see these gauchos in person, driving herds of cattle across the plains. Books and movies have made the gaucho a romantic and glamorous figure, but he also does his share of hard work, as you can see here. On the Pampas, a wild horse is really wild, and roping one is no picnic. Watching them handle these potros led to a cartoon idea in which Goofy attempts to play the part of a gaucho.